Comparison didn't kill your vision. Comparing without context did. Hey, I'm Abiana, and I equip believers to gain clarity, align their minds with heaven, and move forward in spirit led authority because decisions decide seasons. So, when I say comparison didn't kill your vision, comparing without context did. It was maybe 6 months or so ago. I was sitting down and I was looking at, actually, it was more than 6 months ago because it was a whole year ago now. But I was sitting down and I was looking at a ministry that I follow. And it finally clicked one day when she shared her story, because she would share her story all the time. But it finally clicked one day that this was not an overnight thing, right? Oftentimes we discover people or hear about people in their zenith, their sort of mountaintop experiences, like their climb or rise, but miss that they have been doing a work for an extensive amount of time. And it was in that moment that I was like, I was able to name what it was that I was feeling, right? And really what it was, the thing was fear. Fear that I'm late, fear that I'm behind, fear that, if I don't have all the things or look like this or show up like this and have all the platforms and the channels and the audience, that I am not successful or wouldn't be successful. And I was like, you have to compare with perspective. Now, in the last month, a thing that came up that reminded me even more about comparing with perspective was Kim Kardashian. I was gifted a pass for a trial use of Masterclass. And so the first Masterclass I watched was Kim Kardashian's on her, personal 10 commandments for business. Super dope, super cool. And what I learned is that in that Masterclass, I watched that show growing up. What I did not realize, though, is that at the time when her and her sisters owned their store Dash, oops, that they actually did not have all the money. They didn't have all of the things. They were actually borrowing, using Chloe's credit card to purchase all of their inventory for their clothing store. And once they had the inventory, they would try to sell as much as possible to pay Chloe's card off to do the same thing again. And when I saw that, I was like, oh my gosh, you have to compare within context. And it made me think about believers, how so many of us don't move, don't go, don't do, because we're looking at someone who's 10 years ahead of us and trying to make our year one match their year 10 or our year zero, because we've not done anything yet, but we're around here boasting and telling people, oh, the Lord gave me that idea 3 years ago and you sat on it. And you want us to celebrate that idea? Like, that is you want me to celebrate your disobedience. That's what you're asking me to do. We're not doing it. Get somebody else to do it. I'm not doing it. But literally, we compare our year zero to their year 10 or whatever year that they're in. And that is not a healthy comparison. That is not a comparison that gets us anywhere. That is not a comparison that helps you understand where you are today and how you get there tomorrow. But when you compare with context, that's beneficial. Because there was something that freed me in Kim's masterclass when I learned that small detail, that when they had their brick and mortar store, they were actually borrowing to build. They did not have it all. They didn't have everything. She even dismantled, the idea that, their dad just had so much money laying around for them. That was not the case. They were borrowing to build. And I said, oh my gosh. So when you think about when you're on a flight, right? Everything when you're on a flight looks like, it looks grand, it looks big, it looks all the things. So when you're on a flight, I want you to think about how on a flight, when you look down and you're on your what they call it, the initial descent. I want you to think about what that looks like, right? I want you to think about how when you look above, you can see the cities, you see cars moving, and everything looks beautiful from above. But imagine down on the actual street when you get to see that intimate view. That is how I believe we need to compare. We need to compare in context from a 40,000 foot view, not compare at street level. Because every step we take becomes even more clear, so we get to our own street level and not someone else's street level. I want you to get to your own street level and not someone else's street level. Because it's just that serious, right? Like, we don't need to compare to anyone else or anything else outside of context. When you compare with context, it actually pushes you forward. So, me seeing and hearing that from Kim Kardashian and thinking about this woman in ministry who is a powerhouse, right? I'm like, wow, her ministry just began in 2020. And here we are in 2025. That became encouragement to let me know that in 5 years, if God could do that for her, he could do the same with my diligence and steadfastness, right? That the impact that she makes, God wants to make a similar impact. That's the comparison with context. Not trying to have in my year 1 what she has in year 10, right? The comparison with context for those who are in the marketplace is the Kardashians started with leveraging their credit card for their inventory. Maybe I need to start with what's in my hands and not think I need to already have $1 million empire before I do the thing that the Lord tells me to do, before I put out the solution and the answer that people need that I've not put out or done yet. Maybe that's the thing I need to do, right? So it's that thing, it's doing whatever that thing is that the Lord is calling you to do. So I want you to know that it is costly, right, to compare without context. It is costly to compare without context. It is costly to compare without context. I want you to hold on to that. And I want you to name what it is that you've been comparing, identify what the real blocker is, right? So, is the blocker that I don't have what they have? Okay, so fear that people won't do what because I don't have what they have. Identify the blocker. Then I want you to silence all the other noise in your mind, every other thought that you have that says, oh, whatever. And I want you to separate that from the voice of God, whatever God has spoken to you. And then I want you to choose to be obedient. Choose one action you can take in the next 7 days that would dismantle your comparison that was not in context. Here's why I want you to do that. This space is for people ready to move, not people revisiting the same decision again. I want you to sit with what you've heard today and decide. And I want you to let obedience do what overthinking never could. Because we are a people who are moving this year. We are a people who have decided because we understand that decisions decide seasons. So I'll see you tomorrow for day 4. I'm Abiana. I equip believers to gain clarity, align their minds with heaven, and move forward in spirit-led authority. Compare within context.